Thanks for staying with us. It's time to go to the papers and see what the fresh headlines are this morning. Joining us to make sense to those headlines is Mr. Biodun Sowunmi, a public affairs analyst. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with the Guardian newspaper. The screaming headline there is, amid weak social services, states stake nearly 200 billion naira on renovations. This is what is going on in all the states. Everybody wants to renovate government house, this and that, and this is happening even when social amenities are not available in those states. Your comments, sir?
It's quite amazing that given the economic challenges we're facing in the country, governors only see the renovation of state houses, government houses as priority, when in reality, if you go back, you realize that these places were renovated just 4 years earlier. But for one reason or the other, for business best known to them, they choose to do that. It's part of the waste culture which we have in our country. And it's quite amazing that they can't connect with the electorate when it comes to development issues.
Okay. Well, let's look at also another headline here. New tax regime underway as Tinubu signs bill into law today. He is signing that tax reform bill into law today. There was this hullabaloo about the tax reform bill. Some were opposing some sections of it and others were in favor. And they said they were going to hold public hearings and consultations and all that, as they usually do. They bring something else before they do consultations. But after the consultations, I don't know how much Nigerians really know about what the amendments were. Or maybe we should just wait until it is signed into law. Or maybe that's the correct thing that we should have done. Just wait until it's signed into law before we begin to see the loopholes. Are you comfortable with the engagements, since there was some kind of opposition from some quarters about some sections of this law? Are you comfortable with the kind of engagement that led to today being the day for signing that document?
Yes. What they simply did was objections were raised with a view to get certain parts of the bill amended. For instance, the ones on derivation. That if you produce a goods, say for instance we are producing Coca-Cola in Lagos and choose to sell it somewhere else in another state, and that the state's share of it will be based on the consumption in that state, and it's not just the headquarters where the goods are produced alone that will share that. So that has been watered down from about 50-60% to about 30%. And I think that's the goal of what they tried to achieve. All the rest, they were just focusing on other issues. The issue of NELFOR, they know nothing would happen to that because the bill didn't propose to abolish it. So all other issues were added to with the bill to be able to secure watering that down to about 30%. And I think that is what they have done currently. That's the real compromise in the bill, which is not being disclosed in a way that people can engage with it.
Okay. The federal government to hold manufacturers, importers responsible for plastic pollution. That's a headline I saw, and it interested me because I don't know. It's like the federal government or any government at all, whether state or local government, is exonerating themselves if we have plastic pollution in our country.
Well, the problem is not just about the manufacturers or those who are using plastic. It's about what are the alternatives they have. We have research institutes in Nigeria, and they can come up with solutions. After all, they do stock beer, in barrels, in wood barrels. Go to any pub in UK or in US, they're stocking wood barrels. So what stops us from coming up with alternatives to non-degradable, biodegradable materials like plastic, which in any case marks the failure of governments to start with. Don't forget which water corporation is what, which public Can people drink water? Well, when government failed in that duty, other people step in with other solutions, particularly the private sector. But they turn out to be bio-non-degradable. Nobody's saying that we should encourage the use of bio-non-degradable. But what is the role of government and the research institute in coming up with a solution? Otherwise, we would end up with a situation of throwing hundreds of thousands of people out of jobs and worsening, our economic situation, just in the name of dealing with environmental issues arising from non-biodegradable materials.
Mm. Yeah, because in Lagos, for instance, I don't know if you have seen, but maybe because I don't go out that much, but I haven't seen any receptacle, a bin after the time of AMBO, the Cleaner Lagos initiative. I've not seen. In some places that we used to have these bins even, some of them are so bad that there are no bins there anymore, and people just go there and throw whatever they're throwing. And we're expecting that in a place like this, we should have bins everywhere to receive these materials, this waste. But we don't find them. We find instead they are bokis, forgive the language, but that's how the popular name, going with their carts and carrying some things. And some of these people just dump this thing on the roadsides and all that. But first of all, the government is not providing anywhere to dump this refuse, and then they are blaming manufacturers and importers. And it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, absolutely. The recycling bins are not available. Go anywhere. Look, it's very rare to see a recycling bin on the streets of Lagos. So therefore, where do you expect people to throw the thing? Whether they throw it, I don't agree people should throw it on the streets or in drainages. Wherever they're thrown, we do not have an effective process of separating non-biodegradable materials from biodegradable ones, that is from the leaves and paper, and then separates the polythene, the nylons and all that from them. We do not have that system in place for them. And that is the major problem. And we do not have a means of separating them right from the street, right from the source, and this is the real problem. That's the point you are hinting at. And when you actually look at it, eventually, we should be able to evolve, a better system of collection of things like pure water, nylon, and water bottles, in a way that it will not become an environmental problem that we are facing today. So a lot of it is failure of governance on the part of those who are supposed to provide the bins or to encourage the research institutes to innovate a different means of storing water. After all, they also built in their duty to provide them pipeline water to the people. So the bottom line is there's no way you can excuse government from all this.
Okay, over 91% of FX liquidity outside formal banking system, that is the claim of APCON. I don't know, would you blame the citizens for not maybe trusting the formal system in Nigeria? A lot of people are holding on to their money and they are not taking them to the bank anymore. They're not taking the money to the bank anymore. But this is the claim of APCON, that over 91% of these, I don't know whether I trust the data, but this is what they have said. The question is, do you blame the citizens for holding on to their money and not putting it in the formal system?
Yeah, look, when you look at you just need to take your bank statement at the end of the month and go through them. If you save your money, you get charged for saving your money. If you transfer your money, even though the banks are gaining from closure of branches, because they have reduced branches, people can easily transfer their money. One, you pay for the internet charges for using that service. Two, then your banks again charge you for transferring your own money, not using their own staff to do it, for your own self, activity in your own home. You then get paid for it. You get charged for it. That's when you see all manners of charges being taken from depositors, you begin to see why some depositors who can afford not to store money at home, are choosing not to use the bank. Then when you look at the traders, it's also another problem. The traders may need their money at any point in time. The IT infrastructure that underpins our banking services is so weak to the extent that at times you might not be able to effect any transfer, for like 6-8 hours in a day. And that is not good for traders because they need to pay for goods and move them immediately. So therefore, many of them tend to hold on to a lot of cash.
Okay, a final one from The Guardian here before we move to another newspaper is Nigeria can't make progress without efficient civil service, says Alake. Okay, now that is someone in the presidency talking about civil service. It needs to be robust and all that. But is the civil service in Nigeria tailored in such a way that it will contribute very meaningfully to the development of our country? Do they have the right incentives? Do they have the right working conditions that will make them contribute meaningfully to our growth?
Yeah, fortunately, the head of services in the country, both the federal and states, are meeting in Abuja from today. So I think it's something they need to focus on. How do you build a robust public service to ensure that services are delivered to the people? Currently, the perception many people have of our civil service, it's very poor. They think it's corrupt, and they think it's less efficient and poor productivity. And you only need to walk into offices, either in Abuja or any state, and you see some of them watching TV, African movies and all that, virtually highly unproductive. You cannot blame them because over the years, we tried, rather than being creating the enabling environment for the private sector to actually generate jobs. What we did was we turned the civil service into, for employment purposes, as a means of absorbing all manners of people. And because of that, the service became so heavily, dependent on people who they don't need, and that was costing government a lot of money. So it's just now that people are beginning to look at these issues again and say, look, we can't keep employing people into civil service even when they are not needed. And these same people are kept in there. When it's time for promotion, they get promoted, even though they are less productive within the service. And some of them are basically doing nothing. So government needs to, and the civil servants themselves, the head of services, need to look at the situation, what's the real employment need in each state, rather than focusing on just the government side, we should employ people and then pack people into the place. It's the same problem with the CBN. You can see the trouble they're trying to make to restructure the CBN. So we need to right size civil services for them to be more efficient.
Yeah, but is that a reason why the civil servants have to go on strike before they can have promotions? They have to go on strike before they can have minimum wage paid to them? To now, maybe some days are still not being... Yeah.
It's simply because the service is overburdened. If you go and audit, go and carry out a proper audit. The moment you hire people, the trade unions also depend on the check of deals, and nobody will want you to fire anybody. And of course, there are families who will depend on the person hired. But if you don't need somebody in the service and you hire them, what are you doing? That's another human wastage, And because of that, they hardly do anything. So you begin to ask yourself, what is the incentive in promoting somebody who I don't need, who one way or the other find themselves into the civil service system? So we need to right size our civil service while we create jobs elsewhere. I'm not asking for people to be made jobless. I'm saying that states, government, and federal government can still create other avenues for people to gain employment rather than, redeploy them to this rather than housing them in civil service.
Okay, we move to the Nigerian Tribune. The headline, small headline here, top left corner, is saying PDP crisis gets messier, 5 days to 100th NEC meeting. We understand that even the chairman and former Senate President Saraki are backing the return of Anyanwu as the secretary, maybe as part of the compromise for them to be able to hold that meeting, because Anyanwu is the recognized secretary by INEC, and INEC had complained that they did not see a letter signed by the authentic secretary, and all those small things, but this is where they have reached. We also hear that maybe the 30th of June NEC meeting may not hold, but this is where we are. PDP is trying to mend some fences and come back as one body, but it's still bringing more trouble because there are factions. There is a Wike faction, there is a Seyi Makinde faction, I think, and so many other factions that are fighting within the PDP. Do you see any solution in sight in the coming days?
Well, I think what the Damagun-led PDP, the solution they came out with seems to be more sensible than any other ones. One, it's actually in the PDP constitution. It's the PDP constitution that stipulates that letters going to INEC must be signed by the chairman and the national secretary. At the last convention witnessed by INEC, Anyawu is the one elected, as the national secretary. And INEC is saying that's the recognized person. You have not had another convention to choose someone else. And your constitution is saying that is the recognized national secretary and the chairman that should sign the letter. So otherwise, they will not attend. I think common sense is prevailing. Governor Bala Mohammed, who hitherto was considered as anti-Damagun, anti-Anyawu, has seen the light of the day that, look, except if that is what our constitution says, we have to obey it. Even if we don't want Anyawu, we have to go to a convention to change it. And that is the way to go. And I think that is what the Saraki panel, the former Senate president, came out with. Those who are fighting within the party are fighting for different reasons. Don't forget, 2027 ticket is up for grab. You have the Seyi Makinde there, and you have the Atiku royalists there. But I think individuals should cheat their soul, and they need to swallow their ego and come together and save the party first before thinking of individual ambition. Otherwise, we will not have a robust opposition in Nigeria.
Yeah,
PDP has been in power for 16 years.
Saving the party Saving the party might have a different definition to some people because, for instance, it is widely, well, let me say rumored, because I'm not inside the PDP to know, that even Damagun is a loyalist to the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, same as Anyanwu. So, and then this is the Wike that is campaigning openly for the president who is APC and working with the APC now, which is not a bad thing that he's working with the APC, but he's campaigning for the president who is APC. So how many PDP people will be comfortable with that kind of a PDP that seems to be an appendage of APC? So I don't know how, if that's the right decision and whether the people who are fighting do not have a good reason. For now, 11 people of the National Working Committee are against it.
It's not only Wike doing that. You have the Atiku himself, went to Buhari to solicit for a coalition, so his support for a coalition. That coalition is not PDP. It's a different party completely, which they are planning.
ADA.
The second person is Adolfo Swabara, the president of the Board of Trustees of PDP today, went to endorse Alex Oti, the governor of Imo State. He went to, Abia State, I think. He went to endorse him publicly for a second term, even though Alex Oti is a member of Labour Party and not PDP. So when you look at what has been going on in PDP, it's a pot of mess. It's not one person that can be blamed. All of them have their own share of the blame. What we need is a strong opposition within the country, and PDP needs to get their acts together. They need to swallow their ego, swallow ambition, and work towards a viral opposition party.
Okay, this other one that I don't know whether it's funny or something, but Daily Trust, we have this story about a running mate, because there's been this talk about choosing a different running mate for the president for 2027. I will do whatever Tinubu wants in 2027. That's according to Barao. Your comments, please.
Are you referring to Barao?
Yes, Barao.
Yeah. Well, Barao is touting himself. That's the way I see it. I don't think this is necessary. These are a self-inflicted injury by APC on APC. One, we should have waited for INEC to flag off official campaigns before we get to this stage. Is after the convention, you've chosen your presidential candidate, that the issue of the vice presidential candidate that can come into it. But what we've seen now, even though INEC said APC has not contravened any law, through this endorsement, is this endorsement that has led them into a situation where rather than people focusing on governance, everybody is talking about who will be the vice presidential candidate, to the president in 2027. We still have just about 2 years or less than that, to go. So for me, it's a self-inflicted injury. We are not concentrating on governance yet. Everybody's jostling for who will be the next vice presidential candidate.
Okay. There's also on the Daily Trust and every other newspaper anyway, party registration, ADA, obedience among 110 applicants. That's according to INEC. 110 people or groups are applying to have their parties recognized.
Yes. INEC has done very well by, publicizing the whole list. I went through it all, and you can see the conflicts. Even the party being proposed as a coalition by the Article people, also has same acronym with another party, ADA. So how do you register the two parties or one party, with the same acronym with another party? Some of them do not have the party logo. So how would the electorates be able to identify this party? INEC cannot create it for them. And some have said not to have a potent national chairman or secretary. Again, who are you responding to? Some have no fixed address in Abuja. So where would INEC communicate their decisions to? So these are some of the problems which we have with untidy approach to issues of governance. And you can begin to see it right from the process of party formations by politicians. So I think INEC has done very well by exposing this time so that the appropriate applicants can put their house in order and represent their applications right.
Okay. The leading headline there, before we go, the leading headline on that Daily Trust is soldiers, bandits in bloody clash in Niger, and the rider is many feared dead. But we're concentrating on what the Punch says. A very tiny headline at the top there says, ex-generals flag intelligence failure as bandits kill 17 soldiers. 17 soldiers lost their lives in that attack that we're talking about. We don't know how many bandits were killed. We were just told that there was a trail of blood that shows that the bandits had been eliminated. But 17 soldiers, and probably more, lost their lives. Others were wounded. And the ex-generals are saying that it's failure of intelligence.
Absolutely. It's quite unfortunate. One should just feel for the soldiers that lost the lives of their loved ones. My heart goes to them. It's quite unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation. You ask yourself, what essentially is the job of State Security Service or DSS or military intelligence in a situation like this? I mean, we should by now, with all the efforts made, introduce name, introduce BVN and all that, we know that these people cannot function without money. How have they been able to move money one way or the other through the banking system? And how have they been able to collect ransoms, in a way that the state has not been able to apprehend them? And it's quite unfortunate that increasingly Niger State is becoming a theater, for all manners of social vices, including banditry. So I think it's time the federal government review the strategy with a view to ensure that there's synergy when it comes to the forces, battling banditry in our country. We need to review our security architecture. Something is fundamentally wrong with intelligence gathering.
Well, may the souls of those who lost their lives rest in peace. At this point, this is where we draw the curtain on this segment. We thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Sowunmi.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. We've been talking with Mr. Biodun Sowunmi, a public affairs analyst, where we're trying to make sense to some of the headlines that we have on our national dailies. We're going to take a short break. When we return, INEC sees 110 new political party applicants. We'll be dealing with that. Stay with us.